Hi, I'm Dru Damico, president of Building Hope Real Estate. Welcome to Charter Conversations. Today, I get to talk to my boss, mentor, Joe Bruno, president of Building Hope Holdings. He has been a legend in the charter school space, especially with facilities funding and charter school investments. Joe, welcome.
Hey, thanks, Dru. It's great to see you.
I met you about 5 years ago in Idaho. What were you doing in Idaho, especially Pocatello, Idaho? You were the first person that I ever met in Pocatello, Idaho, wearing Gucci loafers. So I knew that you were awesome the minute that I saw you.
We were asked to help Connor Academy get financing for their new construction project and for their new facility in Pocatello. And we were just bringing in the money. We were arranging, and I don't remember whether we arranged the senior financing, but we certainly were providing the subordinated debt financing that the school didn't have, i.e. their form of equity, which was money that we received by the Albertson Foundations, and we would turn around and reapply to worthy charter schools projects. So I think it was at the closing or at the school opening, at one of those events, I knew that the school didn't hire us to manage the project. They had their own owner's representative, and which was Dru at the time. So at this time, I got to meet him in person, and we had a nice conversation. I struck it up, and I said, Dru, this is a nice building. I would have done a couple of things differently. I would have added more space here and there, but you really did a nice job. And he was very knowledgeable about the real estate construction business. And we started striking a conversation. And I said to myself when I went home, I said, I'd love to have that guy on my team, you know?
Tell me a little bit about how Building Hope started and how you got involved.
I used to work at KPM, what is now KPMG. It used to be Pete Mark in the 70s. And there I met a fellow CPA, Al Lord, and he worked also at Pete Mark in Philadelphia. I was in Washington. We became friends over the years. He was successful. He became the chairman of Sallie Mae. As you know, Sallie Mae is a student loan company. And Al and I kept in contact, even though we went different ways for all these years. And in 2003 or thereabouts, I think it was the summertime, he had a boat. And he always took me and another friends, Al and Sal, Al, and Cal. I was the Sal. He would take us on his boat trips, and he'd be the captain. Cal would be a navigator, and I was the cook. And so his secretary called me and says, listen, on your trip to West Point this weekend from Washington, be ready for something that Al's going to ask you to do. And I said, what is it? He says, something about charter schools. I said, well, what are they? He says, well, you better find out about them. He's going to talk to you about them. Anyway, that's how I got started. So we went on a boat trip, and not the first day, but at dinner when he says, you know anything about charter schools? I said, well, I read a little bit about it. Regina gave me a heads up. And he says, I want to get involved in education in DC. We're down at the bottom of the list in terms of academic results. Washington, DC is in our backyard. They've come looking for money. Different school organizations have asked Sallie Mae for money. I've given them money. I haven't seen much results academically. So I asked some folks to do a little study for me, and they came back and said, if you want to help education and move the needle, try to invest in charter schools. I would say one other thing, I've had two careers. One's in finance and public companies and auditing. But my last 17 years, I think I've had more impact on what's important now in the lives of young people. Indirectly, I would say we don't educate anybody, but indirectly we help a lot of schools, advance the charter school movement, which obviously we think gives you a better chance of success.
In these 17 years, what are the things you're most proud of?
I'll give you a couple examples. I was asked at, Achievement Prep in Washington, D.C. was one of my first schools, okay? I was asked to come to a ceremony there, which was a school opening. It was not a groundbreaking. It was not a ribbon cutting. It was a school opening where I got to be and I got to address all these young kids about the importance of an education, right? Innovation Montessori, where I had Sherlyn, who was the leader at the time, that forced me to get up and say something in Italian about Maria Montessori. And again, addressing some parents, some students. So those are the really satisfying moments, right? To get in front of people, not because of what you did financially or creating a building, but be able to give you an opportunity to connect and share some ideas and thoughts on why the importance of education in any particular situation.
Yeah. You mentioned you had two careers. You had the for-profit career, and then you retired, and then you got brought into Building Hope, which is a nonprofit. Is there a difference in your mind between the for-profit world and the nonprofit world, and how you see the world now?
As I said earlier, it's about impact. But I will tell you one thing about the business model, nonprofit or for-profit. And I learned this a long time ago when I was working in the for-profit world. And we're the business consultant for the St. Joseph's Health System in California. And that was a nonprofit. So I went to a board meeting. We were providing some consulting services. We're trying to start up an HMO. And we weren't as successful setting it up as fast as they wanted. So we were losing money, the HMO, right? And so one of the board members said, well, we're a non-for-profit. It's okay if we don't make money. The head of the board, a nun, said, ladies and gentlemen, I just want to say one thing. No margin, no mission. Okay? It's the same thing. Okay? There's no margin, no mission. That's both for profits and non-for-profit. You have to have more coming in than going out in order to continue that business that you're trying to do.
Joe, that is one tough nun. What did she mean by no margin, no mission?
The mission that her business mission, she ran a hospital, right? Her mission was to have the hospital take care of people. And so if she didn't have more cash flow coming in and cash going out, she couldn't continue her mission of taking care of people. It's simple. You need more revenues than you have than expenses. Otherwise, sooner or later, you won't be able to sustain your business. In her case, was her mission. So she knew if we didn't make money, sooner or later she'd have to abandon taking care of people, which is her mission. Simple.
It's probably some good advice for board members of charter schools and new charter leaders. Building Hope, over the last 17 years, you've grown it to a place where you're in charge of the oversight of maybe over $200 million of investment with respect to total project costs and new facilities and loans and a whole bunch of different ways in which we invest in schools. Did you ever think you'd get to that point when you started?
Good question. I never had any targets. However, I'm a business guy and I wanted to, at the end of the day, do as much as I could and expand the business as much as we could as an organization, right? I'm proud to go from 2 employees to almost 42 employees today. It was all driven by how many kids could we eventually impact indirectly from our work, and how many schools can we help?
Joe, when I first started with Building Hope, there was a concept that I didn't really quite understand. It was the idea of technical assistance. Can you tell me a little bit more about how Building Hope goes about it?
We go in there and we analyze financially whether the school has the ability to afford what the school leadership wants to have. In other words, you want a facility? No problem. We help you decide based on what you think the school thinks is going to be their enrollment. We helped you pro forma what it would be like to have a building and how much you can afford in that building. Because I will tell you this, most schools start out with, they'd like a Taj Mahal of learning. It's okay. Anybody can dream. More importantly, though, is can the school afford that? And what goes into that affordability analysis is very simple. Again, how many students you think you're going to attract, okay? And those students will bring in so much revenue. So that's what money coming in. Do you have philanthropic support? If that's also a revenue. And then you have to offset that. What's the cost of the teachers? That's the biggest cost, okay? And the second biggest cost is that building. And we'll come in and do a technical assistance where we'll help you based on what you think your enrollment, we'll test that and we'll stress test that a little bit, because we have programs that go in and tell us what in that geographic area where you want to put your school location, how many charter schools are, how many public schools, how well they're doing, et cetera, et cetera. So that'll give us an ability to understand whether your assumptions on the number of children you're going to enroll, which drives what facility size, which you can afford. So we have an ability to test that to make sure we're on the right path. And then we'll help you do the math, okay? And oftentimes what happens is, yes, we'll identify what size building you have, but you can't have all the bells and whistles because you can't afford it, okay? So you may get the 50,000 square foot building, but you won't get these three other, you won't get necessarily a gymnasium, or you won't get a weight room, something along the way. But we'll tell you, and we'll be able to project based on your enrollment, which is the key, what you'll be able to afford. And we do that, we call it technical assistance. We'll do it to any school, any level of their growth. And oftentimes we get funded for that by special programs, like the Walton family has a program. The DOE has a program that gives us grant money. In the state of Texas, the state of Florida has given us grant money. And because these states want to put the effort and the understanding up front, what's going to work and not fail at the end of the day. And we're really good at driving those particular analyses.
So most of the time, this service is free for new schools.
It's almost 100% of the time is free.
What were the early days of Building Hope like?
Yes, so it was, let me give you an example. It was fun. I had a little desk at Sally Mae's office by myself, and people knew I was open for business. So I'd get all these startups. One person who's now a board member, who also was deputy mayor of education, Washington, D.C., Jenny Niles, came to me. All she needed was a 1-year guarantee from a landlord, right, on a rent guarantee. $15,000 was like, ouch, right? It was simple, right? Some schools had different needs, right? They had a piece of property because maybe some of their board members, like DC Prep, one of the board members and chair was a real estate developer, found the properties, and he gave enough money from an equity standpoint, but still needed someone to put together the financing and put through that sub-debt financing that acted in the form of equity, right? And so that's what we're in business for, to provide that. When you buy a home, if you don't have the down payment, you need to borrow from your parents. Well, we were the parents in a way, right? So we would put the sub-debt loan at very, very low rates, and that's how we developed the business.
Joe, what other philanthropic organizations have contributed to the success of Building Hope?
Obviously, Sally Mae Foundation got us up and started. Probably our next in line was the Walton Family Foundation. They helped put together a revolving loan fund for Washington, D.C., of a huge impact in terms of size. We have the Albertson Family Foundation in Idaho. On the government side, we've had the Department of Education through its credit enhancements, been very helpful in terms of funding some of our projects. And also we've had the state of Florida, big supporter of Building Hope. And then Opportunity 180 in Nevada, which we're currently working and trying to expand our presence there. But I think those are the significant organizations that have helped us along the way to accomplish what we've accomplished. But without their help, we would have not been able to accomplish as much as we have, because it needed funding, and they're providing funding.
Why did you decide to get into other lines of business?
When we first started, the first three of us, Paul and I, were both CPAs, big firms, and the schools would ask us for accounting advice. And, we gave them accounting advice. Then they asked us, could you help us find somebody to keep our books? Because the schools couldn't afford to hire their own, accounting team, if you will, okay? So we said yes to a couple of schools in Washington, D.C. We didn't hire staff because it was really expensive, but we went out and subbed the work out. We subcontracted to local accounting firms, but we were responsible for the school's financials because they contract with us. So we grew into that because the school had a need, okay? And then when we were starting to work in Florida, because of Richard's contact with the Florida school community, and because he was a CFO of the big charter school group, we started that because we saw a need, and that need really helped us in two ways. A, we were experts in finance and accounting and charter schools. Rich was CFO of a big organization in the charter school sector. But secondly, as most important, they looked to us for advice. And because we had a portfolio of schools, they were looking for best practices that we could give the schools in terms of what's school A versus school C doing. Somebody asked us if we could help them because we were CPAs and accountants, to expanding it into a full service line, especially in Florida, and in further engaging and connecting with the client. Okay, that's how we got into that.
Joe, over the years, you've built a lot of great client relationships. How'd you do it?
I've had 50 years of experience at it. And it started very early on. When you work in public accounting, the only thing you have is your client. And so, and if you want to be successful in any business, but in my career, public accounting, you have to go out and develop new clients. And the only way you develop new clients is by taking care of your existing clients that were given to you when you were starting in the organization. So over the years, you need to maintain a relationship, and you need to have those clients word of mouth help you get others. How do you do this? And this is important for our teams at Building Hope, okay? A relationship with a client, okay, to be successful needs to be long-term. It isn't a one-on-one relationship. It's organization to organization relationship, okay? That's why I stress to my folks, I don't want to be the only person, or Rich Moreno shouldn't be the only person because he runs Florida and he runs the service businesses. No, a team needs to be there. So I learned early on that it was important to be part of a team with multiple relationships, okay? And it's still very important. And you build that relationship by doing good work, being timely, which is part of doing good work, being a subject matter expert in what you're doing, and having a client look up to you because you can provide something that he or she do not have on their team, and say, see you as a resource. So it's about being there on a timely basis, delivering them, letting them understand that you have something to contribute. And that's how you keep relationships, okay? Now, in any world, there's competitors that come all the way around and try to get your business. Again, it's important to constant contact. Here's another thing. You got to get face-to-face with your clients. You can't just call them up when you need something. You call them up and you keep abreast of what they're doing at all times. Go out of your way to go visit them. Show them your care and are interested in the business, not just when they hire you to do a project, but continuously. Check in. Let them know you're there, you're thinking about them. That's what's important. And people that value relationships value that.
What advice do you have to young charter school leaders or new charter school leaders today that are looking to start schools?
I say it's really, really hard work. My daughter teaches fourth grade in Connecticut. As by way of an example, she used to work in Washington, D.C. when she lived at home, and she was in a 99% free reduced lunch environment, and it was really hard work. She worked 12 hours a day, didn't get a lot of pay. She had an MBA from an Ivy League school, and didn't make a difference, right? Now she's in Connecticut. She works for another traditional public school, but it's higher on it's lower in free reduced lunch rate. And so it's a whole different environment, but she still works a lot of hours, okay? So I would tell you, it's hard work, it's necessary work. I will also tell you that I listened to a presentation the other day by Chester Finn, who is at Fordham Foundation, been in education a long time. And he said, you know what, in order to have a reasonable, successful life, okay, on all aspects, you must do a couple things. First thing is you must get an education. The second thing is you must find a job. And I think that at the very beginning, it's an education. You've got to start with a good education. It's the only way you get out of the spiral of poverty, if you will. And look, I'm an immigrant. I came from Sicily when I was 8 years old. I didn't speak English. If I'd have stayed in Italy, I'd probably still be a farmer, okay? I came here. The only thing I knew was I had to work hard. And then, I knew that at the end of the day, My father made a sacrifice to come here, didn't know anybody, but we came here. He worked hard, never made more than $18,000, had 4 kids. But he gave us an opportunity to get an education. Okay, we're able to do that, and we became successful working within the system. It was hard, but there was a sacrifice. Okay, and he recognized the importance of that. And I think that today's families need to recognize the importance of getting their children education, no matter what zip code you're in. Okay, and I think I've seen over the 17 years, because of the internet, the ability of parents or in poorer zip codes to really step up and decide and take action to make sure their children have a shot at the best education possible in the neighborhood. And by the way, there's something else. In one of your conversations the other day in Idaho school, I thought it was really interesting. I never looked at it this way. Monica and Matt, right, were asked a question from Elevate, and the question was, how do you direct, how do you manage your kids? And the answer was, look, if a child or student does something wrong, okay, and they expect me to call their parents to report on them, I won't do that. I didn't do something wrong. The kid did it. They tell the student, said, look, you call your parents, you tell them you messed up here, let them know you're accountable. In other words, these students must be accountable. And I think that I took that away and I said, that makes a lot of sense. Didn't think of it that term. Remember, I'm on the business side. But every student must be accountable for their own behavior, their own academic success. I thought that was really important. And why I think the charter school movement is great is there's so many academic and educational models that fit the different needs of different schools. I've learned that too.
You mentioned Rich, and you told a little bit about how you met me in Idaho. But who else at Building Hope has been influential in the growth?
As we're growing the business, I needed an accountant. I wasn't going to do the accounting and doing all the client relationships. And a good friend of mine who I'd known 40 years at KPMG, he had retired. And so I enticed Paul Lelick to come join us. Actually, he was probably bored at home. And he joined us. And I had a little extra with Paul. His wife was the chief academic officer for Montgomery County Public Schools in Maryland, and which was one of the top states in America in education. So she came with Paul and her ideas. So Paul was instrumental, and they just retired after, I guess, 15 years at Building Hope, just this past month. He really did all our finance, all our internal financial. I had the opportunity to meet Robin Odland, and Robin was part of the OFN team that was assembling the bond guarantee program. And when there was new management in his organization, we kept talking, and we finally agreed that he would join us, and he's running our finance. So we really added a real banker, because that's his background. So we have a real estate guy in you. We have really a big charter school operator in Rich, and now I have a banker in Robin. So I have a very, very good team. And our board's been incredibly supportive over the years. I mean, some of the board members have been with us 17 years. I mean, there's 5 of them. Marianne Keller started as the board chair. Al D'Alessandro, 16 years. Bill Quimby, 16 years. Fern Beretta, 17 years. Sheila Ryan, okay. We've had a new number of board members, and which today include Jenny Niles, who was one of my first clients of Building Up, but she was looking for the 1-year lease guarantee, and started a great school, E.L. Haynes, and became deputy mayor of the city. And so been a real success story. She's on our board. So we've had some great people on the board. We've had tireless service for all these years, and guess what? We don't pay them. Some other nonprofit organizations pay their board members. They do this because they believe in the mission.
Joe, at the end of the day, when you're no longer involved with Building Hope, which I hope is many years off, what would you like all of us that are with Building Hope to know?
I would like to leave this in a way that everyone can continue to work together and continue to push forward and have an impact in education. It may be different than today, but I think we have a really good team that has a lot of different skill sets. And I would love to see this organization continue many, many years after I'm gone. That could be my legacy. And I want to make sure I leave it in such a way that there's nothing I've done to create any distraction or any risk going forward. So when I'm done, I'm going to turn it over to you guys. I'm going to wrap it up in a nice bow. There's no risk in any of your investment in a portfolio. It's up for you guys to do with it and move it forward. I've done my part, because that'll come that day.
Joe, thank you. It's so good to see you again. Well, I see you every day, but I feel like this was, us being in the same room is a little more challenging. But thank you for being open, and thank you for, I think thank you for just being someone who has been a great investor and shepherd of schools that have started up. You seem like you've been there. You're hands-on with these schools, especially early on, in order to build momentum for building hope and for also the charter school movement. So I know that you have affected the lives of hundreds of thousands of students and as well as their families and teachers and leaders. So thanks again, and we will talk soon.
Thank you for your kind words, and thank you for this interview.
And thank you for joining Charter Conversations. If you'd like to learn more about Building Hope, we just relaunched our website. Please visit buildinghope.org or continue the conversation with us at charterconversations.org. We'll see you soon.